Well, here we go. So this is the last lecture from me for the semester, and so just reiterate again, I've enjoyed spending these last 8 weeks with you, and enjoy getting to know you all a little bit better through your writing and through your emails and your correspondence. So I wish you all the best going forward. And hopefully you found this information sharing to be useful, helpful, maybe a little insightful, maybe a little stimulating even, or not. So whichever it is, that's okay. I've enjoyed this quite a bit, and again, I wish you guys all the best going forward. So this last block is on something that I'm quite familiar with. If you took the opportunity to look at my bio, you will see for the past 10 years, I've been working directly in this field, um, primarily as a result of my experience with these guys right here, and the um, importance of reverse logistics on uh, the companies using the information available from the reverse logistics activity to improve quality, improve service, um, uh, give the customer a voice, if you will, and say this is what needs to be fixed, this is how it needs to be fixed, and work directly with the big box guys and work with our sales team to grow a company from a $90 million company, of which to a $150 million company in the space of less than 24 months, uh, primarily because of the information that was found in the reverse logistics process. So that's how important this is. And you can say, well, these guys are really screwed up, and you could probably argue that all day. But these other guys also found the same thing. So this is kind of a who's who of the companies that I worked with over the years, over the 10 years. Companies that uh, came to came to the company I was with, to my employer, and said, "We have a problem here. We need to understand this." Or we would go to them, as we have some of these people, and said, "We think we can help you. Let's do a pilot and let's see what we find out and see what we can do with it." So I'm not. There's some proprietary information I obviously am not going to share, but some of these guys are pretty much the leaders in their industry, and they found this program to be of great benefit to them, not only as recovery of costs, because that's what reverse logistics is. It's not a savings because you're already so invested in this by the time you get to that. It's a recovery of the cost, so it's really a part of the netting solution. But out of that comes different channels, different things that you can do with your merchandise to keep it sold. And the whole purpose behind this is to keep it sold. So the area that concentrated in was right here. You can see what these are. A lot of kitchen appliances, a lot of home goods and things like that. We did some outdoor power. This is outdoor power. This is air compressors. So this is kind of outdoor power, tools and outdoor power. The rest of this is primarily all in the kitchen, major appliances, countertop appliances, um, and that's what this is all basically about. A lot of these brands that you certainly recognize, you probably have in your house right now. In most cases, if you ever returned it, it came through the company that I was with. So we'll talk about what happened to it when it came back, what the processing was, and where the data came from, and then how it was used. So this would be fun for me to kind of end on this because this was a wonderful experience. Um, it stretched to me. It took me out of an execution or more of an operational role and put me into a business development role, and a role that I really truly enjoyed. And we're able to bring some of these accounts in that as a result of myself and my colleague who came from Home Depot, was a merchant at Home Depot, our ability to navigate through our experiences, because I'm on this side, I'm trying to fix it, which I was able to do with the help of this third party, which is the company I was with, and he actually bought the appliances that we remanufactured for these guys and put them into Home Depot, into small market stores. And his experience was so good that this was kind of a no-brainer for us to kind of jump in, because there isn't anybody that's doing this at the level of detail that I'm going to describe to you right now. Okay, so one thing about omni-channel is you have omni returns. So what happens when omni returns is that what we're seeing is that while 9 of every 100, about 9% of purchases in-store purchases come back for a return, 30% of 100 online purchases come back. So this is why it's critical and essential that you have a robust returns policy, because when your customer expects you to have that, and they've said it's very important that you as a vendor have that. So if I need, as a consumer, if I need to return a product, I don't want this to be subject to a restocking fee. I don't want to pay the freight. I don't want to be penalized in any way, because if you do that, I'm not going to buy from you. So this has to be made easy for them to do, and it's a critical part of the overall customer experience. And that's how all online purchasers look at this. So sure, you can have it taken back to the store. You can bring it back to the store if you want, and that's fine. It's still going to work its way back to me. But if it's a direct to consumer, then there may or may not be a store to come back to. So you have to have the answer for that, and keeping in mind that there are challenges associated in this, such as your L&D here is going to be higher, because it may not come back in the box in which you originally sent it. It may not be packed the way that it was packed to protect it. It may not even be a box at all, which is not unusual coming back from some of the major retailers. And so there's a risk here associated with it, but there's a risk of not doing it. And we'll talk about that as we kind of go forward, because most of the people that you saw on that first slide were experiencing the risk of not having a returns program more than anything else. So we know that retail sales are forecasted for roughly $4 trillion, and we're looking at 440 billion forecasted e-commerce sales, but retail sales will be greater. Retail returns will be more than e-commerce sales. So that includes store and non-store. So this is a big market. We think this is a big market. This is a bigger market. And these kinds of numbers get people interested in, well, what can I do? Because obviously there's something going on here. And this is what I'm doing now. What else can I do? So let's talk about that. There's lots of different kinds of returns. In many cases, a return will come back. It'll be a good where the retail and the vendor, you're overstocked, or you're changing out a SKU list. Review. You come back and you've offered different items, so you have these excess items that you need to pull back out of the store, so you buy them back. Maybe you replaced an existing vendor as a result of your line review with the buyer. So you're going to have to buy back that merchandise because he's not going to take it, because the vendor is not going to take it back from the retailer. So you're going to take it back. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to sell it? So you have obsolete, you have all this kind of good stuff that comes back. It's not just limited to products. Capital assets are the same thing. Computer systems, telephone systems, printers, lift trucks, racking, any kind of an asset that goes into retail, in many cases can come back for returns processing and then subsequently been resold. If you can't resell it, you're going to recycle it. And there's a revenue flow. There used to be a revenue flow in this. There's not very much anymore. On the consumer side, you will have a return direct from the consumer back. This is a very different type of thing. You'll have a centralized retailer return, where the retailers will bring them back into a return center, and then ship them back to you in bulk. Or you may have a store direct return. Depends upon the retailer and how they do it. If you don't have any of this, and you have something called destroy and field. And when you have destroy and field, what happens is they don't destroy it. They actually put it up to auction through one of the liquidator companies, like a Genco, for example, is a liquidation company, or even the retailers themselves will liquidate it with the assistance of a third party. So you can go on a Walmart site and buy a pallet. You have to buy a pallet of destroy and field merchandise, and you put a bid in on that pallet, and you don't know if it works or if it doesn't work, but you put a bid in on it, and then you have to come get it. So and then it's yours. So you can see, you can look at some YouTube videos that show people who do that, that buy pallets of liquidated merchandise and then find 5 or 10% or 15 or 20 or 30% of goods that are in absolute pristine condition, and then sell them on eBay or through some other website. There, you can actually see this taking place on YouTube videos. But the problem is, that's one of the problems and the challenges that the retailers, that the actual manufacturers want to try to control. We talked about this slide last time. That is, this is what we used to aspire to. This is the perfect order, if you will, which is no longer is now expected. But you may be expected, but if we don't do this, this is what happens. The goods come back. And when the goods come back, they come back for all different kinds of reasons. This looks like something that fell down the steps. These are bulk returns coming back. They're not even in box. They're coming in gaylords. They're not even in boxes. They're just consumer brought them back to a retailer. Retailer put them in a box. Immediately deducted their cost from the invoice. Their cost. So whatever the manufacturer sold the product to, the first thing they do is, when this is processed, is deduct that amount from any open invoices they have. And when they deduct that, you normally have negotiated what's called a returns allowance, maybe 4 or 5% of that. We call that first cost. And so that also gets deducted as part of the retailer's costs for doing this process. So right away, you've had that first cost deducted, which means you've had your entire profit, whatever profit you had in that sale has just been taken out. So you're 100% vested in that return, and it looks like that. That's the first thing that happens. Before you ever see it, that's the first thing that happens. And this happens, this can happen at different times, but certainly the closer it gets back to end of quarter, you see these things come back in spades, because they want stores want their inventories clean, the retailers want all their credits processed. They take their credits. You have the responsibility as a manufacturer to match them up. It's called debit reconciliation. So when this product comes back into the recovery facility, the return center that you use in this case, we're going to go through each and every one of these individually and record it. And then you're going to match up. Well, they said they sent back 50 on this particular purchase order number. They only sent back 48. Now, are you going to charge them back too? It's up to you. Good luck. These are also returns. So you can see they're not necessarily treated in the best way. They fall apart. We talked about secure freight and things like that. These are not necessarily secure freight. The pallets are kind of mismatched. There's all kind of it's wrapped kind of loosely. It may fall apart, but this is what it looks like when it comes in the door on the back of a truck. Most companies don't outsource reverse logistics. So of course that to us was the target audience we wanted to look at. In fact, only 34%, according to the 2016 third-party study that was done by SCM590. Only 34% of manufacturers outsource reverse logistics, which is effective repair and return. They will use others. They may liquidate, which could be not part of this or someplace else in this, and may not be included in this or looked at like that. So this is still a very, very wide open area for companies that are in it. Okay, so normally when we talk with a customer, when we talk with a manufacturer, this is what they're looking for. What can I do to reduce down? What cost avoidance what revenue flow can I have? It's a cost avoidance that will help reduce my existing costs on this. So this is how can I generate revenue out of these products? Is there a revenue flow? What is it? Let's quantify it. And let's see what we return. That's the first thing. The second thing is channels. They don't want these goods to go into channels that they currently sell. So they don't want return goods, even though they have never been used, to go back and be sold on eBay or Etsy or whatever without their permission, which is of course exactly what happens. These goods show up through the liquidation channel. People buy these pallets, as I mentioned, and they find 5 or 6, 10 different items, and they sell them as new. So that's a problem because then they can get returned again. So this is another issue. There are some retailers who don't ask questions on returns, have very liberal returns policies, including giving back cash if it's an item that they actually stock. If the SKU checks out, it's an item they sell. There are some retailers who will give the consumer who returns it, even though they never bought it to begin with, cash. So it becomes a real, and of course they immediately take their credit out of your hide. So we're also looking forward is the product that comes back that they're taking debits for, or credits for, are they even the right products? We'll talk about that. Why did it come back? What can we do to improve our recovery rate? I mean, why do these things come back? What can we do to improve it so we can do a better job? And we need to take our people out of this. We need to take the space out of it. We need to free up our distribution center. We need to free up our manufacturing space, whatever it is. We need to. This is not what we do. It's not our core business, and we're not doing it as efficiently as someone else can do it. And of course, the solution we have was across multiple facilities, so they could use any and all of the facilities we had. And we provided the data back to them at a very finite level if they wanted it. And of course, it is environmentally sustainable because we are basically turning it into a saleable item rather than throwing it into a dump or scrapping it or recycling it or whatever. We're selling it again, not on their behalf. And we're either buying it and selling it, or we're selling it on their behalf into the markets. So there's a second sale, and that's part of the cost avoidance. So these are the issues that we dealt with. There's a ton of this stuff on engineering and quality. We'll kind of go through it quick, but everything we do here is about engineering and quality. Why did this come back? And every one of these units has its own story. So while it all adds up, there's nothing that's the same about a lot of these, except sometimes you'll find, of course, a repetitive defect. So let's take a look at this. The other thing we have, that's next. The other thing we have is that much of this is automated. This is an example of a bidirectional EDI process. This particular customer brings their goods in. It goes through an entire remanufacturing process, supported by various transaction sets, which we define down here. And then these products are all sold through a third-party online retailer. And this is their transaction sets. And these are all customized transaction sets, and this is all managed by us. Sometimes we use FTP, sometimes we use portals, sometimes we're direct connect. We have some customers who we're actually direct connect into their enterprise system where we're capturing the information we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So this is the value stream mapping of what takes place. And what I really want to call out to you is here, it starts all right here. It starts all at receiving. So what happens in receiving? We're capturing all this kind of detail. Everything that comes back in on that product that the customer wants to see. And they don't have to take all this, but they can have this. This is very flexible, so it can be anything you want. The data point can be whatever is important to you, but we do recommend these kinds of things. So we build a database that can be used by the customer to go back to the retailer and say, well, wait a minute, you're charging me full cost for this particular product, but we're not getting back all the accessories that were in that box when we sold it to you. So we're not going to give you that kind of credit. And then you negotiate. But you can't do that if you don't have a database. So this data capture, which starts right here, this is what starts the whole process off. And then I'm not going to bore you with all this, but basically there's an inspection. We're looking for functional, we're looking for mechanical, so we're looking for safety here and these kinds of high-pot tests, electrical tests, mechanical tests, and there's functional tests, cosmetic tests. All of these are defined by the consumer, by the manufacturer. They tell us what it is acceptable, what's not acceptable. And then it goes through these kinds of steps here and ultimately is then put into a finished goods warehouse and then ultimately is shipped to a second channel marketer who then puts it on the shelf or sells it online or whatever it is. And then through this mechanical, this level 2 here, we look at it and we get engineering data on why it came back, and I'll show you what that looks like. Because remember, that's one of the things they wanted to see is what's going on here. Do we have an engineering problem? Do we have a quality problem? What's going on? So I'll show you this, and there's different tiers of that. Some of this is just rudimentary stuff, which is this. We call this TQM, data capture, and then there's some areas that go into root cause, and then there's some that go into conformity all the way down the line, which is where we're really playing corrective action. And this is where we're talking about quality engineering. So this is like chargeable stuff to us. All right, so let's take a look at it. The other thing that comes back is voice of the customer. So this is real stuff. This is real information picked up at receiving from the customer. We capture any kind of notes or any kind of comments that they that the consumer or the store puts on the pallet or puts on the actual item. They'll put a tag on the item, and they may write on it, or they may actually print it and say, well, this has got a broken spout. Okay, so we're looking for the spout. We're looking for this blender. I'm not telling you whose blender it is because we know that too. So we know the blender. We know the product date code. We know the carrier it came in on. We know the store that it came from. Blah 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 blah. So we know all this. And you're not seeing any of that, but that's all there and is provided to the consumer or to our customer. Okay, it doesn't perform the way it's said. It moves around on the countertop, so it is vibrating on the countertop. They found a better price. The lid was broken. The fryer too small. I don't need it anymore. Okay, so this means there's nothing wrong with that. If it hasn't been opened, it probably was never used, but you can't assume that. It's too large for the cabinet space. Okay, all of these things are the data analytics that need to go back into your sales and marketing trends. So why did this happen? Well, why didn't the consumer know when they bought it that the cabinet space required or the countertop space required was X? Could that have been averted, not by necessarily putting in the dimensions, which undoubtedly were in there, but a picture of the unit on the countertop and say, this won't fit under a standard counter, under a standard cabinet height. We've had that. We've seen customers who've come out with that, and people look at it as a desktop or as a countertop type appliance, and it won't fit under a cabinet. The standard, 18 inches is taller than that. So of course, yeah, it's too big. It's going to come back. I hit the button. I ordered one, but gee, I don't know how I got two. Well, you hit it twice. That's how you got it. So again, these are all things that marketing and engineering needs to see. And can use this and say, gee, I got the wrong color. It's the wrong, and one I love is it was the wrong color black. We had that come back. That was a great one. Wrong color black. I meant to order this. Well, what can you do on your website to avoid that and avoid that consumer making that error or the next consumer making that error go forward and get that sale and keep that sale one way or the other. So this is an example of voice of the customer. This is really crucial stuff. This is really data analytics at the root of the whole issue right now. What are they telling you? I talked about engineering codes and failure codes. That's what this is right here. Again, this can be very simple. This is very simple. We're looking at we'll make a recommendation as to how we might want to do it based on assessments of samples that are sent in. This is what we suggest that the defect codes look like, the failure trees look like. This is an example of real data for a particular item. And this is telling us right here that there's a problem with 11% of the items it's not the mechanics, it's the body. So the body something's happening to the body. You can see this 11% here is cosmetic, 12% here. So we got 23% of its returns were due to some kind of body damage. You can also see right here that 222 out of 2981 weren't even this model. So if 5%, if this holds true, and 5% of the units that are sent back for your return aren't even yours, that has a huge impact from a credit standpoint. These aren't even your units. These are somebody else's units. So how can that happen? How can you work with your retailer to see if there's something else you can do? So this is the kind of data. This is a very simple one right here, but this is the kind of data that you're looking at. So this is another level. This is far more complex. This is actually a 4-level tree, defect tree, defined by the customer. So they not only wanted to know that it was damaged, they wanted to know, well, where was it damaged? And they had codes assigned to, well, it was broken here, or it could be broken here, or broken here. So they actually break this out and say, where does this defect occur? And so there are specific codes, and these then go into their quality system. It's automatically just uploaded into their quality system with their codes. So this really, facilitates the whole process. But you can see this is much more complicated than just saying we have a mechanical failure. Well, this is the nature of that mechanical failure right here. And so this is all aggregated and sent to them. So it's failure, cause, visual, cause, component, cause, root. And so this is where they would come back to us. They'd come back to us and say, we want you to do a root cause analysis, which is that level 2 or that level 2 or 3 type engineering assessment for them as to why this occur. So they would use the company as their lab, as their engineering lab. This is another example of what you can do here. Why are these units coming back? Because they're improperly packaged. So this is a unit that comes from China. It's a big unit, as you can see. It's got a lot of attachments in it, a lot of pieces in it, and it looks like this. Here's the load right here. You can see the piece of foam. You see the gap here. So without any support here, this load is being carried by the pitcher right here. So all the compression is coming down on the edge of the pitcher, and the pitcher then is breaking because it's not necessarily a high quality plastic, but this is not designed for protection. And so this is what they were getting, was this crumpling or this caving of the carton, and they can't sell it. So these goods were coming back right and left, and they didn't have the resources to know what was happening. So they said, well, what's going on here, guys? So we went into it and looked at it, and it was very obvious as soon as I walked in the room what was going on. You can see this. It's all about compression. It's all about improper packaging. Another example of what you can do with this. This is an engineering example where we had a tier 2 supplier was making this assembly right here. And this may not look like much to you, but what it is this is the right length, which is 30 millimeters. And here, this is what the assembly looked like. You see all this slack here. And when you stretched it out, it was 60 millimeters long. Well, what happened was when the assembly is then pushed together like this, it broke the wire. And so when it broke the wire, then the unit failed to perform. This happened to be a brand new unit that was put out as a response to competition, and they had to pull it from the market. And it was all done. This is all foreign manufactured. It was all manufactured in China. But this was a tier 2 supplier, and the tier 1 supplier wasn't checking this. So there again, this is the data that came back. They got the answer they wanted. They went back. They asked for a credit against the manufacturer who had to push a credit against the tier 2 guy. Or didn't, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you have this with data. You can go back and say, I want a credit. And this is exactly how you do it. You document it and you quantify it. So that's how that works. There is a second channel marketplace, and there's actually multiple marketplaces. There's major guys that some of you probably, like Big Lots, for example, will buy refurbished goods. And Fred's is another one. Then there's some of the middle tier, third tier, and then you get a scratch and dent guy, and then you get into some of the private marketplaces where this is your blast, like Groupon. You may have 2,000 blenders like that, for example. We'll put them in a new box. They'll look new, and we'll sell them for 60-70% of retail with a warranty, and they'll go just like that. Warranties on us. Or you can liquidate. So if it's safety tested, that is, it passed safety tests and but it can't be repaired cosmetically, then you liquidate. You don't. That was our approach to this. We didn't liquidate if it was cosmetically repairable, or if it did not pass safety. So and the other thing you can do is donate it. There's huge tax advantages to donations from a charitable deduction because you get your cost back as your deduction, not your inventory value, but your cost. So, uh, that's a real positive way of reuse, if you will. Can't do it on all kinds of products, but you can do it on a lot. Okay, so that unit we saw early in the game where it looked like it fell down the stairs, this is that very same unit after it had been refurbished. So this is what you can do through parts recovery, cleaning it up, making it look like, and of course this unit came out with a 1-year warranty on it. Here's that same other unit we looked at initially, and this is what it looked like stainless steel, what it looked like it was finished. Same situation. So you don't look at that and say, ooh, for $80 they got that fixed. So and then they sold it for several $100s, where they used to scrap this, and but now there's a market for this. It can be a scratch and dent store. A lot of this stuff shows up in um, other appliance stores and other appliance outlets. Um, you see it advertised. Gettiger says, "Do you want something with a scratch in it for a lot less?" That's this. That's what this is. This kind of thing. But it comes with a warranty. In this case, it came with a factory warranty because the quality of the goods was high enough that they could do that. So it's not something. So I think there's the other point here is that what we do in reverse logistics affects everything. It affects not only logistics, it affects engineering, marketing, sales, the consumer, quality, procurement, the legal side of it. Everybody has a piece of this, and it's a great place for people to come together and do a dive in terms of how can we continuously improve our product? What's the customer telling us? What can we do about this? And because the cost of this is your entire profit for every unit that came back, plus the cost to process it. So you're 125 to 120, 125% invested in this product day one. So you might as well try to get your money back out of it by having a structured program that that is focused on generating revenue, generating information, generating data that you can use internally to improve your product and improve your customer experience by providing better information to that consumer about what does this look like on a countertop. If it doesn't fit under a countertop, don't tell them it doesn't fit under a countertop. So rather than send it out there and then send it back, I mean, it's just amazing that this isn't a little more obvious. But if you see the data, that's because I've seen the data and I know that, and I'm sitting scratching my head saying, why doesn't the company see this data? Well, because the data doesn't get to the right person. So it's not that they don't want to, they don't know it. So we've some of our larger clients, they said, can you host a tour of what's going on? And they'll bring their marketing people down, their engineering people down. And you get these groups together and you have this collaborative meeting. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that these plastic casters are why we're getting uh, uh, the casing is breaking, or the facing on this thing is busted. Well, yeah, that's exactly why your casters are so weak that there's no support, and so if somebody just drops it because it weighs 100 pounds, which it does, then they're smashed and it just cracks the body. So, oh, well, I didn't know that. Okay, well, it gets dropped a lot. That's part of the problem. Yeah. So there's all kinds of information things you can do with this, and I think this is the power of this. This is another reason. There's another way to do this that can bring value back to the company. It's not just retail that does this. Aviation does this. Big power equipment like Caterpillar, for example, they have a whole organization built around reverse logistics because their things come back. So if it comes back, um, start to look at it in a very structured way. If you have a supply chain organization, it's most likely because it's got everything else in it that is driving this, um, it's probably the best place to position it, but the information has to be shared organizationally. And again, this is just like demand planning. It has to be driven down through the organization, and everybody has to see it, and everybody has to own it. And that was the beauty of what we had at Karcher. Everybody owned it because it was killing our P&L. And so everybody was motivated and incentivized to solve the problem. And boy, did that take down a lot of walls. So that again, that's another thing is the incentive alignment to make sure everybody understands how important it is in the overall performance of the company. So uh, it's always been an afterthought, but we're seeing the leading companies are starting to apply what we call, basically the traditional forward supply chain principles to the reverse side. There's a lot more that happens here. I'm not going to take your time. I'm not going to take uh, explain it all to you because we're already 35 minutes into this. But hopefully that'll give you a sense for just something else, another side of this business that you may not be familiar with. And again, it applies in virtually every industry there is. Everybody has returns. And so the question is what do you do with it? Do you just ignore them or do you try to continuously improve your product? And you can learn from this. So hopefully that was interesting to you. And again, I hope you enjoyed the time we spent together. I hope that some of this material has been helpful to you and you found it interesting. And I look forward to reading your papers here in another couple of weeks or so. So best wishes for continued success, and we'll see you on the other side.